Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Legend of the Drunken Cook. Tonight's episode is butter chicken. This episode of Legend of the Drunken Cook is brought to you by Budweiser. Not sponsored by, but certainly fueled by. This is a Mughal Indian dish, a curry, an Indian stew. Very, very popular in Western culture. Probably one of the better known Indian dishes in Western culture. There are many variations of this recipe in existence. Different people have different ways of cooking it. What you might buy in the supermarket is a pre-made butter chicken. It's probably not flavour-wise the same as what we're going to cook here, but the flavours are intense and I love it. They'll probably go a bit heavy on a couple of the ingredients. It's a personal taste thing, but as far as I know, to the best of my knowledge, this is a fairly traditional recipe and we make it from scratch. There is no, there's very little pre-processed stuff, which is the way I roll. This recipe that we've sort of altered a little bit comes from one of my favourite books that has taught me how to cook, and it's known as The Food of India, which contains pretty much any Indian food you could wish to make, which of course includes all your entrees, your chutneys, your relishes, all those sort of little bits that go up to making Indian cuisine. Your meat curries, your vegetable curries, desserts, different breads, different rices, lovely drinks, spicy drinks you might have on a hot summer day, that sort of thing. It is a very comprehensive guide to Indian food, but very concise and easy to understand as well. But as for the butter chicken, which we're about to prepare and marinate overnight, and we'll cook it tomorrow, let's have a look at our ingredients. Now, these are our aromatic spices. What we have here in this little bowl of absolute joy is about a teaspoon of chili powder. We've got a quarter of a teaspoon of ground cloves, a quarter of a teaspoon of cinnamon, and a teaspoon of garam masala. I highly recommend getting one that's imported from India because it's got more herbs and much better flavours. The Master Foods one you get on the supermarket shelf is not nearly as nice. It's also got a bit of salt in it. A teaspoon and a quarter we need all up, so I've got a teaspoon of salt in there. I'll show you in a little bit what we're going to do with the other quarter of a teaspoon of salt. It's going to come into play. Yes, the only thing missing from that is 4 to 5 cardamom pods, which we're going to bruise slightly, as they say, or crush slightly, which is very easy. Crushed. What that does is sort of releases the seeds, which releases all the beautiful sweet aromatic cardamom flavours into our spice mix, into our chicken, and into the butter chicken recipe as a whole. Cardamom is one of my favourite spices. Actually, probably my favourite. Right up there with basil. Okay, that's our aromatic spice mix. That's going to go into into the marinade for the chicken. The base for our marinade is a tin of chopped tomatoes, to which we're going to add, of course, the chicken, but we'll also add about 170 ml. I'll use a whole tin of this. This is 200 grams, so I'm not sure. It's fairly heavy stuff, so 170 ml roughly. The yogurt is an excellent thing for meat. It tenderises the meat and it helps all our spices and everything. Oh, that's the Budweiser getting me. It helps everything, all the flavours to soak into the meat, so when we cook it, it's absolutely mind-blowing. What we have here, the recipe this is taken from, which if anybody was to get technical, I've already altered with putting a little bit more chilli in it, because it's not a very hot recipe as far as chilli heat goes. It's not typically Indian in that way. It's more about the flavours, but this here is usually 80 grams of blanched almonds, but the blanched almonds to me seem a little bit bland, so the last couple of times I've cooked this, I've used cashews with great results. This time around we're doing half and half cashews and good old Australian macadamia nuts. We'll see how that goes. The other thing we have here is a bit of ginger. This is definitely more than what the recipe calls for, but we have 3 cloves of garlic, which are rather large cloves of garlic, because I like it heavy on garlic and I like it heavy on coriander, so we've added a little bit more ginger than what we normally would, because ginger tends to counteract the garlickiness of garlic. So we'll sort that ginger out, we'll chop that up, and I'll show you a good trick. Now this is a trick that was taught to me by several television chefs. Great way to sort out garlic. Just give it a light bang with your knife. You don't crush the crap out of it. And what that does is allows the paper to peel very easily off your garlic. Look at that, nothing simpler. And then of course what we do, we kind of put the garlic back together again like Humpty Dumpty. Just cut the stalky bit off the end, and we'll chop that up. Never ceases to amuse me how garlic is such notoriously sticky crap, whereas ginger is exactly the opposite. Now we need to chop this fairly finely. Careful not to cut the end of your finger off, as I've almost done a couple of times cutting onions, and I know my friend Rob has cut the end of his finger off cutting onions. So there's a warning for you. Onions definitely do make you cry. Now I said the salt would come back into play, and we only need an extra 1/4 teaspoon or so. Thereabouts. Whoa, that's probably a little too much. This is another good trick that was taught to me by several television chefs. Can't think of any names, but it is a good trick nevertheless. Now with our salt, what we do is we sprinkle it liberally over the garlic, and what that does, as salt does, it draws the moisture out of your garlic, as it does with anything. Eggplant's a classic example. I flooded a kitchen bench once making a moussaka for the first time. Of course the salt draws all the moisture out of the eggplant. Just give it a good old mix so it's well coated. Not sure why I have this song in my head. Come to the cabaret, nah, nah. Something the cabaret. Yeah, very easy method. It's looking nice and glistening. Look at that moist garlic. This spurs mostly from, well, this is what a professional chef would probably do. Comes mostly from my hatred of garlic presses. Which is an acquired hatred, because I like to use the whole clove of the garlic, not 2/3 of it, and then you've got to chop the mangly bits up afterwards, and it's really really a pain in the bum. What you do is you just get your knife and you're literally crushing the garlic as you're going. Doesn't have to be like fine crush, but as long as it's fairly well pulverised. See all the glistening moisture. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. What we're going to do is we're going to add this to the garlic and stir it we're going to add this to the ginger and stir it around a bit, and then we'll add it to the mixture that we're going to marinate the chicken in. That'll do nicely. Okay, bringing it all together. Wish we had a bit better lighting in this kitchen. Add the garlic to the ginger. Gotta be careful with knives because they're sharp. I figured out a few months back, a couple of years back, that there's probably not a day gone by since I was a child that I haven't played in some way with a sharp knife. Just get used to it, I suppose, growing up in the bush. To our tin of tomatoes, we're going to add our nuts, our aromatic spices, and of course our garlic and ginger mix. Bloody Budweiser. Sorry, that's the beer talking. That's lovely. Now, of course, we add the yogurt. Give that bit of a mix up. A lot of dry ingredients, a couple of wet ingredients. What we want is a fairly even consistency. We just want everything to be well mixed together. There we go, lovely pink mixture. And give that a taste. Oh, it is the taste of India. A bit of coriander in that. It'll be lovely. Now what we have here is a chicken thigh fillet. No bones, no skin. What the original recipe says is fairly large chunks, but I like little bite-sized pieces. I prefer to be able to get, you know, a couple of small bits of chicken in my mouth than one huge piece. And it's very, 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 very simple. I felt the sharpness of the blade on the edge of my finger then. Thing you want when you're cutting up chicken. Beautiful. This of course goes into our marinade, and we'll do the whole kilo like that. So what we end up with is a kilo of diced chicken thighs in our marinade, And we just want to mix that in and coat it nicely, so it's all well coated and everything can do its job as it's supposed to. Get some plastic on that, and we'll bung that in the refrigerator, ready for the next stage. Oh, need 2 hands. No, multi-skilled is the thing. I'll put that down in here with the rest of the ingredients for the rest of the mix, and leave that overnight. The absolute minimum you should marinate this for is 2 hours. But we're going to do it overnight. Like I said, what that's going to do is just intensify the flavours. Everything's going to soak into that meat. The yogurt's going to work to tenderise the meat. All the flavours are going to soak in there. It's going to be absolutely mind-blowing. Yeah, it's going to be good. You're a fucking lunatic. Votre santé. Hey. Don't know how that's supposed to help with my kung fu.